Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. And we're talking about off-season workouts. Matt, your team's done. I've started to get back outside. You guys have snow right now, right? Are you expecting a delay this week?
Oh, I can only be so lucky.
Because we're talking about like trying to get into shape, and I told Matt, if you want to hear the full extended live stream, you can go to patreon.com/southboundsports. But we're talking about our watches and how we use them to get kind of like tracking and motivation to get into shape. But my main thing is now I'm getting outside and not stretching enough, of course, at my age, which is you need to do that. I get outside and I'm like planning on going just for a quick walk. And it's so cold that I'm like, screw the walk. I'm going to try to run so I can get my distance in. And then I'm running and, of course, I tweak my hips. So I'm like limping around like an old man. And I'm like, if only I had planned it a little bit better. But I don't look at the weather either. So I don't know what it's going to be like. And
I thought you were going to say like you biffed it. You're just laying in the middle of the road.
No, of course. I upgraded my shoes. Like I had been wearing like the crappiest running shoes I could get. I actually have I don't even know what they are, what brand they are. But I actually went out and tried like different ones. And I'm like, I need to get something because if you remember, was it last year? Some car came flying by, ran me off the road, and I jumped and like tweaked my ankle because like my shoe like was kind of like wobbly, and it like blew the shoe out. It's like an NBA type thing. Or then I was running and it was kind of like flopping, and I'm like, do I go the cheap route and glue this? Like probably not. Like why would you do that? You're gonna hurt yourself. So that's my new thing. We actually had a family member go out and run a 50-mile race, which is something that I didn't even know people did. And I thought that's like some Tom Brady dedication there to want to do something where you're training for like a 12-hour race or whatever it ends up being, just to get away from your family, right? Because that's the number one thing I've been thinking. It's like, I do like the casual 10K, and I looked up 50 miles. I was like, what would that even be equivalent? So I typed in like, what's the average time for a 50-mile run? It's like 8 hours. So then I was like, I'd never run it in 8 hours. So like, what is the average? Like, you got to be insane. And then they said like the fastest was like 5 or 6 hours. And so I'm like, well, let's just pull out, my Garmin tracking thing. And I did like the calculation to see, and it was like mine would be anywhere between 10 to 13 hours. And I was like, not even close to the average. Like at least Garmin said on my best day, like if I trade, I would be still 2 hours slower than the average Matt. So that's not a good sign when you're looking that stuff up. But again, I would never even run anywhere close to 50 miles, right? I don't even like driving 50 miles because you're sitting there and you're like, whatever. But I did look at their calculations, and it was almost like you could walk for bits of it and hit that same pace, I think. But again, how do you get the stamina for 50 miles to be outside? I just like that would just be crazy to me, because I don't think you would just train for like 20 or something and say, I'll do the rest on race day, right? But who knows? Would you want to do something like that?
No.
Why not?
I actually, to be honest, I was joking that I did, just because I know there were a couple parts to his race that his time could have been a lot faster. I was like, oh, well, now I just have the motivation to do it, just to rub it in your face that I beat your time.
I didn't even know what the time was. I didn't look at the final, but I was curious to see what it would even take, because I thought, if you're planning to race, like has to be, I thought it was going to be like a full day thing. And then I see that the average is 8, and I'm like, I would never even come close to that, right?
But like part of it that you're factoring in too is that when he ran his race, it was like in like the terrain was kind of woodsy too. So you're dealing with like wet November temperatures.
Yeah.
So like
you don't even want to be outside. That might motivate you more to go faster though.
I was joking that may not have been a bad way to just go to slow pace, just put one of the college football broadcasts on, and just you're left alone. You don't have to go do chores. You have to go to a fall festival. Just like, oh, I'm just out here just strolling.
Well, I guess I should ask him. Like, I guess he was using a GPS watch. I wonder if the battery was dying. If you had to like charge it in the middle, because I don't think mine would even last the race. Because even training for my 10K at some points now, where if I don't have it like fully charged, and this is like it's like 2 years old or whatever. This isn't the Solar or any of the new ones, but there's been times where I'm like, hey, I'm feeling good. I should run a little bit longer, and then I'm hitting the home stretch, and I get the dreaded low battery, and I'm like, damn it, now I got to run faster because I don't want it to lose what I did today, you know. Because I'm like, I hope it saves like incrementally. I've never actually had it die, which would be embarrassing on a run. But I think at like that certain point, I would do like the tortoise and the hare, where I just stop and take a nap. Not because I'm in first, but just because I'm tired.
Well, I did find this kind of cool though. I guess throughout the race there was like different spots where they were offering you like beers and shots.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I would want.
But I was like, well, if you're really in pain, just go ahead and shoot down a shot real quick.
I feel like I would just be instantly throwing up. I don't even know if I would want to eat. Because like, I got a race for you, man. You can come down and do the Krispy Kreme challenge, where you run, I think it's like a mile, and then you eat a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts, and then you run back. They do it in February. You should come down and we should do it. It's a very NC State thing. That's an ACC thing. Does Florida State have a race that they do? We can go do theirs next time.
All right.
We'll travel to ACC and we'll do all of their runs, unless it's something ridiculous. Anything over a 10K, I'm probably out. I wouldn't even do like a Pittsburgh Marathon. I know people that do that, but I'm like, I've seen people put the stickers on their car, and I'm like, why? You might as well just put your letters from like high school sports on your car at that point, right? Takes the same dedication.
Well, I'm just thinking, just to crush a box of Krispy Kremes.
That's what you want to do?
That takes a specimen.
You have to hurry up and run right after, otherwise you get adult onset type 2 diabetes
or diarrhea. That would be the worst.
That's why you're racing everyone else back to the bathrooms, because they don't they don't have enough lined up for you.
There's only 2.
That's my intro today. Messing around, like I think I don't even know if I brought up like the show last week, but we took some reports, like some feedback and stuff, and trying to make some adjustments. I'm sorry if you're on Google. Google botched like our podcast feed for whatever reason. Our site must have been set up back when Google Plus was still a thing. So it like wanted me to re-verify all the stuff, and then I didn't realize when I was doing it, like it jacked up a lot of the video stuff. So I'm trying to get everything back up and posted. I think right now, even before the show, I verified it, and it still said, oh, we can only show one episode because, you know, you're not verified. But I'm working on it, so I apologize to that. But last week, like we took the feedback in. We're going to be putting videos in the middle of the show. You can watch them there. There is only going to be one feed. There's no extra show. If you want to watch the full show and get behind the scenes, you can go to the Patreon, like we said, on southboundsports.com. Click on the Patreon link there. But right now, there's not going to be separate feeds for anything. That was the number one thing people wanted, was just one feed. Subscribe to the Southbound Sports Show on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the show there. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll put our highlight clips there, and a little bit some of the extra stuff from the live feed. So that's the only 2 places you need to go. You can get everything right at southboundsports.com. I'm working on, once I get the Google stuff figured out, I will fix the website to put some of the YouTube stuff directly on there too. But I'm working on it. Anything else you have off-topic stuff before we get rolling with the NFL, Matt?
No.
All right, this is going to be a throwback, kind of. And because the YouTube stuff, we've had trouble with like our account being taken down because of video, so we're going to try to do this with a picture instead. And for those on the audio, it's probably going to be better anyway, because I'll have to describe what's going on. But let's take a look at this. This weekend, JuJu Smith-Schuster caught a pass against the Jaguars. He was running like a dig route or something, like he was across the hash, heading towards the outside. He catches the ball. He puts his head down, right? I have the image here, and he gets knocked out. Like, it was clearly a concussion. He did the thing where his hand like clenched up, right? And they threw the flag for targeting. If you look at the still image here, the defender is bracing himself, right? JuJu put his head down. When they showed the slow-mo during the game, JuJu put his head down. He delivered the hit. The defender kind of jumps back in the slow-mo on the video, and so they picked the flag up. And I've seen people like even Patrick Mahomes come out and say that like, oh, it was an egregious hit or whatever he said. And I'm wondering like, what should the defender have done, coach? Like differently to prevent that?
I don't think there's anything that they can really do to prevent it. It's just there's going to be times with the targeting calls that they're going to have these bang bang plays that in the middle of it, like as the game's going on. I don't know that you can coach pulling up or pulling away or going more into it.
And honestly, I think the defender played it perfectly, and I'm glad they picked the flag up because, like I said, JuJu catches the ball, he puts his head down, he's making the football move, right, to make sure that he has possession. So he puts his head down. At that point, I'm not sure like where the defender is supposed to go. He was kind of bracing for impact. So yeah, his legs are bent. You can see in the picture, his legs are bent. JuJu's hitting him on the side. He's squared up, trying to lead with the shoulder, right? JuJu delivers the contact, which jars his neck, and you can kind of see his neck is bent in this photo because he hit the side of the defender's helmet with the crown of his head, and because the defender was like braced, he wasn't hitting into him. I think that's what caused the awkward hit because I think JuJu expected him to like hit him back, but because it looked like he was saying, oh crap, I don't want to get a targeting call, I'm going to kind of just like take the hit and pull them down is almost what it looked like he was trying to do. And it was already too fast. And like you said, it's a bang, bang. So as a defender, like you really have no time, right? You're just trying to not get injured yourself, right? And he did everything perfect, squared up, led with the shoulder. He wasn't even really leading though, because you can see his back foot is like taking a brace. He's not really pushing off. He's like, I'm just going to hit this guy and then slow him up or whatever. Basically, just that's the end of the play. But just the way that the helmet got caught with JuJu putting his head down. And as a receiver, like, I don't even know if you can teach the guys, like, keep your head up because you're running and you're trying to put your head down to make sure, like, to watch the ball go into your hands, right? So you're kind of limited in what you can do. Because you don't want to teach the receiver, oh yeah, as soon as you catch the ball, lift your head up, because that's an easy way for a drop to happen, right? So I'm not blaming JuJu when I say he put his head down. He's putting his head down to secure the catch, right? He doesn't know that the defender's bracing or whatever. And I just don't think that there's anything targeting-wise that they could have done here differently. I think it was a clean hit. Unfortunately, it was just an awkward spacing where he caught that ball and there's nothing he could do. I think he only took 2 steps. I saw a lot of people compare it to the hit on Antonio Brown from a few years ago where he had jumped and missed the catch. So he didn't even catch the ball. And when he landed, he took a shoulder directly to the head where the defender's his head is down in the photo. The defenders. So he's not trying to do anything different except for he's delivering the punishing blow. So when I see people compare the two and say there's no difference, like there's clearly a difference here. Burfitt's, he's doing the blow. His head's down. He's leading, with his shoulder, but he's making direct contact in the head of Antonio Brown after he had already dropped the ball, which if he had looked up the defender, he would have known that he didn't make the catch. because it wasn't even close to being caught, I don't think. I watched the video a few times, but to me, they're two different hits, so just stop comparing them. And I know we got a lot of pickup from that first thing we did back in the day on that Antonio Brown hit, but I think the NFL's come a long way, and you can only do so much. Some of the injuries are just going to happen, and you hope that they're able to identify them more. We know there's been concussion issues this year, but seeing the video and seeing some of the reactions, now I think not rushing back is the best course, don't you think?
Yeah, and I mean, when I saw that JuJu hit, like the real-time reaction was like, wow, it was a shot. And then like you look, and now they start going frame by frame and to try to see, is it targeting, is it not targeting? And when you're going frame by frame, I think that view kind of gives a different, for obvious reasons, it gives a different picture of who's pulling up and how they're making that contact. And I know they're trying to keep the players as safe as they can, but I think it's tough to try to police it, because there's certain people that just have that natural instinct to be physical, and guys that are more on the side of not taking those hits.
And I think the reaction by the players too, it's not like you deliver a hit and then you stand over the guy and are like, oh yeah, I crushed you type reaction like we used to get in the past. Like, you don't really see that much either. So I think the players are aware, but there are still some plays out there where there's helmet to helmet that happens, and it's not just the NFL. I've seen it in college, and then they do the review, and you know that like the TV there, I forget what NFL game it was, there was a clear helmet to helmet hit. The TV started to show the replay and then they cut it. And I thought, oh, yeah, they're not showing it because they're not throwing a flag on that one. But that was clear helmet to helmet. That's why they're not showing a replay. And, of course, I didn't film it or even write it down as a note. But that's the one thing where just be consistent. You want player safety, be consistent for it. You want players to be healthy and come back from concussions. Give them the time off. Don't rush them back, right? At some point, there has to be a standard for, like, what happened to JuJu is the same thing that happened to Tua with the hands locking up or whatever. So if he's back out next week, I'll be a little shocked. All right, let's get into some more of our NFL stuff. I had the targeting on here. Fantasy football, Matt, I wanted to bring it up because I was looking through some of the pickups, and like not a lot out there this year in terms of like players that are stepping up late in terms of like kickers or whatever. I almost made a gigantic mistake. I didn't tell you this, but I had bid on the Giants kicker because I thought, oh, there's no way that the Bills kicker is going to put up a lot of points, right? Because they're playing the Vikings. Like, that's a bad matchup for me.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'm going to bench him and play the Giants kicker, right? Someone outbid me. And I ended up beating him this week. And if they had let me get that kicker and play him, I would have lost. Because it was only a 1-point win.
If Heineke would have thrown that pick late, I would have had the win.
And I told you, I turned the game off, and it was funny that he threw it to McLaurin, because McLaurin was the only reason you came back. Heineke had played so bad, I thought, I have a good chance to win this game. I was a little disappointed in Eckler's performance, right? His performance, Derrick Henry's, my big horses, and I'm not even like talking like I know my team scored more than a lot in the league, right? If you look around, you probably would have won most matchups. But like my two studs, they didn't really show up this week, so I was kind of disappointed in them. But you know who did? Trevor Lawrence. Playing the Chiefs might be the best quarterback move you can make in fantasy. Because you know the Chiefs are going to score a lot, right? And their defense, it seems like they're just kind of built to play shootouts.
But, you know, the funny thing going into that week, Cincinnati was on a bye, so my kicker and Higgins were out. I had the Patriots defense, they were on a bye, so I'm like, I had three guys that were on the IR, and Njoku was hurt. So I was like, oh, this is just awesome. So like I literally have nobody. And you were saying about having nobody to go to the well with. So I pick up Paris Campbell, who got 20. I picked up Moreau from the Raiders. I got 13. The Giants D for 8, and Gano with 7. Like, I had no business even being in that game with you this week and come within a point of tying.
So I almost picked up Moreau. I picked up Cade Otton because I needed someone because Conklin was on a bye. And then I was like, they gave a report out that Waller might be back. This is before they put him on the IR. So then I didn't bid on him. And then I had already picked up Otton. I'm like, I'm not going to pick up another guy. But I know, like, the Paris Campbell move. My only question for you is, tight ends stink in our league. Why are you playing 2 of them? I'd rather play 0 if I had the option. Right?
I feel like if you could, I've done well with 2 tight ends in the past.
What year? 1989, Matt.
No, but what you see happening more, and Ertz got hurt, which hurt me. Usually he's been pretty consistent in getting points. It's like the tight ends are getting catches because the corners this year are playing better in man coverage, and so you're getting these tight ends on these little dink and dunks that are getting 5-6 catches that are helpful.
Well, I will say one thing. My stupid ESPN fantasy pickup, they almost completely ruined my season because I wanted to drop, who'd I have? Madison, I think, as my 4th running back. I wanted to drop him to pick up Otton, the tight end that I mentioned earlier. And for whatever reason, it glitched and it tried to drop Stevenson from the New England, who's one of the highest scoring running backs this year. I don't know if they thought because he was on a bye, but luckily it was sitting like that for 2 days until I was like, let me double check my moves this morning right before the waiver wire. And I was like, you stupid. Why the hell would the app switch that for me? And so now I'm super paranoid. I'm constantly checking my waiver wire moves. And I'm like, I hope they don't glitch me. Because that would have been just extremely frustrating. Because I would have had to blow my entire free agent budget to try to win him back. But I did get my keeper now, Matt. Breece Hall, baby, $1. Someone dropped him. He's on the IR. I gladly picked him up. I have an empty spot for the IR. I got him locked up. Do you think he's able to recover from the ACL injury?
It's not easy.
I mean, I only have 2 guys on the IR. The broken eye socket guy, Bellinger, who might have lost his designation. This doesn't say. And then Breece Hall, which they gave 2 scenarios. They said, modern ACLs take forever to heal. And I was thinking, I thought ACLs was a nice, easy thing that everyone comes back from, right? Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley. They're both playing now. What would be the difference? If you have a top running back for $1 in our league, that's insane. So that's going to be my move. Now, 4 years from now, if I'm still keeping him for $1, hoping for a 10-point week, then you need to let me know that I need help. But that's my one thing. I'm I don't even know. Because someone had Michael Thomas for really cheap as a keeper. And then finally this year, they kind of just gave up on him. And you drafted him now, and he's back on your IR. That's how I feel about McCaffrey, too. I watched them run that offense, and I'm like, McCaffrey's actually doing pretty well. I'm going to look and see how he did last week, because I like bringing him up since I talked so much trash on him. But it's what they scored. He scored 16 points in our league. That's not even that much. So, it's crazy to me that everyone made a big deal about him going to San Francisco. And they're like, oh, yeah, McCaffrey, he's the guy. They're going to do X, Y, and Z with him, right? They're going to bring him in and do all this stuff. He had a killer week with 39 points to 1 week, but the other week was 7. That was the first week he was learning. So I wonder how he's going to hold up in that offense. I really think he hurts Deebo Samuel owners, right? Because now he's not getting as many touches.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing where it's I see people in our league running 4 running backs. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? No wonder your team is 4 and 5. Running 4 running backs. You might as well have 3 tight ends out there. I could pick up better guys than that. I actually run 3 running backs so myself because Stevenson has been such a surprise for me, right? He's been averaging 15.8 points a week, better than all my receivers, except for Christian Kirk, who's on a bye this week. So I'm in first. I play teams 2, 3, and 4, Matt, coming up in the next 4 weeks, and then one of the other teams in the bottom. So I don't think I'm going to hold on to first place, but it's been a wild run. I can't wait for the playoffs. I hope my guys stay healthy. We're going to be talking about it. That's my moves this week. I still say go with whoever feels like they're going to get the hottest points. I'm still juggling wide receivers at this point. When bye weeks are over, I'm going to have some decisions to make. Because right now it's kind of worked out. This week is my worst week, and I'm playing the number 2 team. So I have quarterback out, defense out, my top 2 receivers out. It's going to be a bad week, I think. If I can get through this week, I'm in a good spot. But I'll fill you in. If there's someone you think would be a good pickup, let us know. I'd love to hear it. But that's all I have for the NFL. You have anything else for the NFL, Matt?
No.
I did want to just, give a shout out to my man, Jerry Jones, fellow NFL owner, a good friend of mine. It's always great whenever our 2 teams, since I own the Packers, get together, and a great upset over you, Jerry. I really love seeing it. I can't even believe that the Packers won that game. But I had a feeling they were going to. When it went to overtime, I thought, hey, we're going to win this game finally. They're going to be back. And then my man Tom Brady, Matt, if you count the divorce week, he's 3-0 since he got divorced, right? Now he's ready to play. So keep an eye on him. I think that they're going to make a run. But we'll be back next week. I knew we were going to talk too long, or I was going to focus on the hit. Because the hit, I see people talk about that, and it just annoys me. Let's go ahead. I'm going to keep rolling a little bit here. And I want to see if the college football playoff thing is up. They were going to put it up, and I was trying to put it on the live stream thing, and ESPN did their stupid takeover where, hey, we're going to do a reveal between 2 college men's basketball games at this State Farm Champions Classic at 9 p.m., which is when we do our show. So I'm like, all right, are they going to go ahead and have the update? No. I still don't even see it on their website. And so did it get released? I don't know. I guess not. I guess we'll have one less video. I guess I'll do an extra video tomorrow or something. We'll go ahead and skip that. I don't even know what I have next on the topic. Oh, so I have a couple of quick hitting videos, Matt. We'll just go with them. Take a load of this first one. Matt, an impressive news. UCLA and USC announced this is the Big Ten football, baby, coming to you live from the Rose Bowl. Sold out at 70,865, right? Except the Rose Bowl capacity is 90,888. This is some Miami math for you. How are they counting this as a sellout when it's 20,000 less than the official capacity, Coach? Would you be bragging about this? This says that they included 16,700 UCLA students, Matt.
Unless they're just banking on that many people not showing up.
Well, I think they tarp it off. I think it's like the Miami move from what people are saying. They tarp off the top row, and then they only sell the bottom half. But that's not a sellout. A sellout means a sold-out stadium. Tarping off 20,000 seats is a shit ton of seats. I don't know why you would be bragging about this. Don't embarrass the Big Ten like that. Could you imagine if Michigan or Ohio State did that? They're just like, you know what? Or hell, even Penn State. Penn State has that upper erector set like row where it's like frigid cold, where they put the visitors right up there in the top corner. You know which one I'm talking about. Could you imagine if they were just like, yeah, we're just going to have that be a tarp? and we're going to announce a sellout to keep Beaver Stadium sellout streaks alive. Hell, even Nebraska has their own stadium, and they don't do that. So that's what I want to know. Why are you doing this? If it's not a sellout, don't promote it as a sellout. Who are you trying to impress? Who are you trying to impress? Do better. We know if you want to play big-time football and get big-time fans in the stands, either shrink your stadium like Northwestern and then have a proper sellout, or actually sell out the stadium. Annoying, right? Like, what the heck are they going to do when they get to the Big Ten? Are they going to untarp it? Are they going to tarp it for certain games? Because doesn't that mess up the capacity? Because I wonder, you always see the reports of like, hey, here are the capacities by league. And it's like, hey, the Big Ten and the SEC. SEC, I think, is always number one. Then Big Ten's number two. Because like some scragglers like Indiana. Is USC in the Pac-12, like, or UCLA, are they promoting sellouts and 100% capacity with tarps on the seat? Because if so, that's bullshit. Right? I mean, I guess it's meaningless, right? The NCAA is not like, hey, we're going to give you an extra scholarship because you sold out 100% of your stadium. But, like, how vain would you have to be to sit down and say, well, we really need to market this as a sellout. How many seats do we have to tarp off? 20, 30? Like, it'd be funny if it was like half. They're like, it's a sellout. Pitt style. Like, could you imagine if Pitt tarped off the entire upper deck of Heinz Field and announced a sellout? Because they probably do it to raise ticket prices, right?
Probably.
I guarantee that's why they're doing it. So I don't understand why fans aren't more mad, because they already have the stadium capacity. Why are they jacking up ticket prices whenever they could just release more seats? It's a scam. That's what I got to say. So hopefully that doesn't happen in the Big Ten. That's why people were like, well, the Big Ten's championship game should be at the Rose Bowl. Like, no, it shouldn't. It should never be there, actually. We've had enough bullshit bowl games there where we don't need Michigan and Ohio State going down and playing in California every year for no reason. Like, get out of here with that. I had another small one come up. Michigan assistant coach, or I guess not even assistant coach. He's just been like football operations. Biff Poggi has been hired by the University of Charlotte down here in North Carolina. And I think this is a big deal. They said he's 62 years old. He was the former coach of St. Francis Academy, which is a high school. So he's jumping from high school, Matt, to the college game. Now, he's been like an advisor to Michigan, and Jim Harbaugh even said a few weeks ago that he's been his right-hand man behind the operations. He helped coached Blake Corum in high school. He's a Heisman contender for Michigan right now and has been helping with him at Michigan. What do you think of this move?
I mean, I think it's good because he has that connection to those high schools in that area. That could be a legitimate pipeline for him to build his recruiting base off of.
And that's a big thing, too, because like they do play up and down the East Coast. It's almost like a smaller ACC conference. So, yeah, getting a pipeline from D.C. down through Charlotte, I think, is a big deal. And everyone accused him of recruiting in high school. Remember, wasn't he the guy that other high schools refused to play? And they did like that Sting documentary on. Remember that? It's like, hey, we're not going to play those guys. They're recruiting. Well, guess what? Now he gets to legally recruit. And if he's bringing in top guys to Charlotte, that could be a big deal with the ACC schools right there in state. If he starts recruiting at a high level, the other downside is he's going to be against East Carolina and App State, two other football-focused schools in a state that I would say doesn't really have strong football programs, but like UNC right now has a chance through the playoffs. NC State's been pretty consistently good over the past couple years. So you're going to be recruiting against a lot of schools. Plus Clemson's just south, just down the road. So that's another big time school that you're going to be against. But Charlotte's growing and he's not getting any younger. So why not see if he can build something there? Hell, Coastal Carolina's been taking off, right? So there's talent in the region. So good luck to him, and I hope he does well. I've liked what he's done with Michigan. He's been a very big key part of Harbaugh's staff. All right. We'll do one more glance here to see if they have the college football playoff thing up before I officially give up, because it's been an hour, man. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they're doing. They're doing a slow countdown 30 seconds ago. So Penn State's number 11, Oregon is 12, North Carolina is 13, Ole Miss is 14, and Kansas State is 15. Your Noles check in at 19. So let's do the XFL topic, and then we can hop back at the end if you want. We'll see, because we're still under an hour anyway. The XFL held their draft, or their quarterback draft, and I'll say this: for The Rock taking control, I'm pretty underwhelmed. Right? I've been hoping. And we're both big supporters of the XFL. I've been hoping that they could take what the other leagues have done and learn from it and really try to push that they're a league that's building up and giving players like a chance and like, hey, we're going to hype this up. We're going to do a thing. There's a social media age where why are you doing the draft on a Tuesday, Wednesday? I thought it was supposed to start tomorrow. Instead, they announced the draft, and I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. I just want to check one thing real quick, because, like, what are they doing? Yeah, that's what I thought. So let's bring it up and take a look. Oops, wrong one. All right. The XFL announced their quarterback draft. So they have 8 teams here. We have the Arlington Renegades, DC Defenders, Houston Roughnecks, Las Vegas Vipers, Orlando Guardians, San Antonio Brahmas, Seattle Sea Dragons, and St. Louis Battlehawks, right? I don't like that they did the quarterbacks first, and they did it without a lot of hype. Because you're taking over with The Rock. You would think marketing is going to be his thing. He's in a ton of movies, it feels like. He's been in hundreds of commercials, right? Go ahead and try to bring something in to the league that's different. Instead, they put out a live stream event randomly across a couple of different days. And this is the press release. It kind of just looks like not even a document. It's like someone just typed up a JPEG and took a screenshot of like Microsoft Paint or something, right? Or like a website. It's almost like, hey, this is going to be our thing. No, I tried to look and see if they had like promo images on the XFL thing. Couldn't really find it. The XFL website itself, they only had 2 news posts, and one of them was just an announcement of the 8 teams from like a year ago. So it feels like they're running it together. And I'll be honest, my number one thing that I've always said that they need to do is try to get star players into the league, or at least fresh college players, right? Someone that maybe has come in and didn't get the chance in the NFL. Let's see if we can bring them in. And I think they failed again. Because if I'm looking through the list here, and I don't want to knock any of the quarterbacks that are going to be in the XFL this year, but looking at the list, the big get is obviously A.J. McCarron from Alabama with St. Louis Battlehawks. He played in Alabama years ago, right? He is 32 years old, Matt. You're bringing in the XFL telling
He's
me...
a pup, though, in Tom Brady years.
Yeah, in Tom Brady years. But, like, are they thinking they're finding, like, a Kurt Warner, a guy that's, like, that's been passed over? Like, he was drafted in the NFL in 2014. Like, that's ancient. He's been stumbling around the NFL, and he hasn't played. Like, looking at his stats, like, his last season was, like, 2020 in the regular season. I don't know if he's kind of been going through, but I want them to go out and try to get bigger name guys. So I try to look almost like, hey, I wonder who didn't get drafted last year that was on the board. Nevada had Carson Strong, signed with the Eagles, right? gets cut. He's currently a free agent. 23 years old. He's young. I feel like anyone that followed college football knew that Nevada was pretty good with him at quarterback. There was some hype around him. People were talking about, is he only a college quarterback? That's one of the kind of guys that I thought that could get a shot here. Another one that stood out to me was De'Aaron King from Miami. He signed with New England at first. I think he might be on the practice squad somewhere as a converted maybe wide receiver, which I get. If he's in the NFL, maybe not available. Another one, Jack Cohn from Notre Dame. Played at Notre Dame. You're going to be a pretty big name. He also played at Wisconsin. He was signed by the Indianapolis Colts, and he got cut in training camp or whatever. So he's a free agent, fresh, just graduated, again, 23 years old, coming off of Notre Dame like year, right? You would think they would have something like that. A former Michigan guy, Brandon Peters, was another one that transferred to Illinois. People might not really know the name from him, but he played at Michigan, played at Illinois, tried to sign with the Chargers, got cut. He's now a free agent, according to the NFL list here. So he's available. Maybe not as high as like a Jack Cohen, but you're trying to bring, like, to me, try to bring people that are kind of fresh, young, might have some upside. Try to get you hyped. And I have one for you too, Matt. Mackenzie Milton, Florida State. I think everyone remembers him from the UCF years, right? Tried to play at Florida State. Had his name in the NFL draft. Nothing happened. Why not give him a chance at least, right?
But part of that might even be for him. I'm almost certain he's doing broadcast work for UCF now. That maybe he's content getting into the commentary and saving the wear and tear on him. Because some of these, like, there may be names that you want to try to bring in, but looking at the way that the AAF collapsed, the way the XFL season was cut short because of COVID, like, I can see some players being hesitant to not want to commit to a spring league when you can try to push to get into the NFL.
And that's what I'm wondering. Like, I think they would have a better chance with some of the guys like a Jack Cohen right after. You know, Mackenzie Milton was kind of an edge case. To me, he would be the bigger name get just because of what he did at UCF. Now, he did have the injury, so maybe, like you said, he's done with football, the wear and tear. I understand that. They did bring in Francois, which I thought was kind of weird. He played with the Orlando Guardians of the XFL, right? After playing at Florida State. Or that's where he's going, right? Yeah, the Guardians. But before that, he was with a couple, like the Glacier Boys or something. Was that part of the Fan Control Football League?
Yes.
So they bring him in from there. That's where I read it backwards. So it's like a little bit. He is younger. He's only 25, so he'd only be a couple years older. But that's the type of guy that I was hoping that I would see more of, right? So you really only have him and AJ McCarron, unless I'm remembering some of these other guys. Like, I'm a Big Ten guy. I don't even know who the hell Anthony Russo is from Michigan State, buddy. Like, how would I know who that is, right? And Michigan State's been pretty good, right?
You got Michigan State, you got Central Michigan, you got Western Michigan.
Yeah, if you want to be the best, you go to Michigan, right? If you don't, you end up in the XFL. I'm trying to look it up because I was thinking, like, did he even play? He's a graduate student. He played in 2 games in 2021. And redshirt junior. So he was the primary backup, I think. So, like, to me, XFL, if you're trying to get people to watch, try to do better. I would have liked to see more. What do you think for the final thoughts on it?
I want to see how the season kicks off and what are they going to do that's going to be different? Because the one thing that we've seen from these, and I know me and you are kind of biased because we enjoy these leagues, but the one thing that has always been a knock is that they start out so rusty and slow and stale. That what are you doing to try to get get people on the same page and playing at a competitive level.
Well, that's why they're bringing in top quarterback talent like 32-year-old AJ McCarron, Matt, so that they're ready to go fresh, not stale, like you said. Because why not? Bring the guys in when they're coming fresh off the season. Not like any of the guys I just mentioned. They had all played college a full season pretty much last year. And they're like, nope. Which I guess Anthony Russo is on this other list I found as players that entered the NFL draft, but he didn't sign with any team. So then maybe they did go down the list, right? Maybe you're right. I don't know, but I think they could still do a better job promoting it. They at least have one person on social media trying to sell you on, hey, these are the guys that we got.
Well, and the XFL made a big deal about trying to be partnered with the NFL. And I don't know if that was just a competitive thing to fight with the USFL. But so you have the partnership with the NFL. Like, I think there still needs to be an what does that even mean? Like, how are you contributing anything with them, and what's that look like?
And are they just doing, like, honestly, what I would like to see is officials in training. Like, even if I don't care about the players, if the XFL is doing anything with the NFL, I would hope that they would be helping to train officials.
And then they can send them directly to the ACC.
Nah. Would that make them better or worse? What do you think?
Anything would be better than what has been there in the ACC.
All right, let us know in the comments if you're planning on watching the XFL this year and what you would like to see them do. All right, so I'm going to check one last time to see if they put out the rest of the college football playoff, and then we'll use that as our final thing. Looks like they did, finally. They used the same type of graphic as last week, so I'm going to be confused as hell when I try to look and see if I updated the right video. Let's bring it up real quick, and then we'll see. I'll try to bring it up twice for those on the live stream so that I know where to cut it. But this should be the updated one, November 15th. So I'll get into it in a second here. Not a lot has changed, at least in the top four. I think it's the exact same let's get into it here. All right, the new college football playoff ranking. We have the top four, I think, almost stayed the same. Georgia, number 1, Ohio State, number 2, Michigan, 3, and TCU at 4. And before the show, Matt, I told you Michigan and Ohio State were going to stay there. I think ideally, I wouldn't even have been surprised like if Georgia had fallen, if they would try to get a 1-2 matchup with both teams being undefeated going into that last weekend. Unless I think Ohio State plays Maryland this week, and Michigan goes ahead and they play home against Illinois. So unless one of those teams end up losing, I think they're setting up a premier matchup here where you have a 2-3 matchup. TCU's right there. I think they could theoretically go undefeated. And for my thoughts, I think it's hard for me to think that they're going to leave the other conferences out. I am a little shocked right now that North Carolina is at 13. They're a one-loss team. I know they've kind of been struggling, but traditionally, it seems like they've tried to move other conferences that have one less loss than everyone else up. So if they end up winning out, don't be surprised if by ACC championship weekend, if UNC wins through the last 2 weeks and they're there, that they're probably going to be near the top 7, right? I think LSU is right there because I think it's going to be hard for the committee to put both LSU and Georgia in, like people are saying. How do you go ahead and leave out a Michigan or an Ohio State or a one-loss Clemson and then put in an LSU team that lost to Florida State, a team that Clemson beat, right? Even if they beat Georgia, I don't know how you can say both Georgia and LSU are in and not Clemson, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because you're there, and if you're going by a common opponent, LSU lost to an ACC school in the non-conference. You can't say non-conference matters for some schools, but not for others, right? You can't say, well, the Big Ten, their non-conference wasn't that good, so we're going to drop them out. But LSU's loss against Florida State does not count for the ACC at all, when it should. Florida State's 19th on the ranking here. They could say, well, LSU lost to a ranked team at this point or whatever, but Clemson still beat that same team, and they lost to Notre Dame, which is even higher on the list by one spot. They're at 18. And that's where I want to see some consistency. Like, are they setting LSU up to jump? I don't see Tennessee getting in unless Georgia somehow loses the last 2 weeks, which is not going to happen. I think they're already in the SEC championship game, right? I think SEC championship game is Georgia and LSU.
Yes.
So they're locked in. I'm surprised that no other Big Ten team is in. You have Penn State at 11, Michigan and Ohio State. It's like, all right, that's going to be it. No West team. Like, they really have no hope of Illinois beating Michigan, or I know they're on a 2-game losing streak, or hell, even Iowa has been close enough where they're back in. I know Iowa lost to both Michigan and Ohio State already this year. So if they play them again in the championship game, is it going to go any different? Probably not, right? I just don't think. So
now my question is, say LSU beats Georgia in the SEC championship. Does Georgia go to 5 or 6 and LSU jump in?
So it depends what happens. Here's my thought. If USC wins out and Clemson wins out, I think one of those teams is going to be in the playoff, right? As it stands right now, the winner of Ohio State and Michigan is in. TCU, now it also depends if TCU drops 2 games or not. If TCU finishes undefeated or with 1 loss, I think they're locked in, followed by USC. So then, therefore,
I think if they lose, they're out.
Who? TCU?
Yeah.
1 game.
Lose 1 game and you're done.
I think if they have 1 loss, it's going to be hard for them to put a 2-loss LSU in over them.
No, it's really easy to do it.
Not with the championship game, though. They're going to have the extra win. That's where I think what's going to happen is if you have 3 1-loss conference championships, they've said in their bylaws or whatever that the conference championship is under consideration, right? So if
under consideration doesn't mean that they're going to put them in.
So if that's going to be the tiebreaker, I think then they look at who's going to represent the SEC. Are they going to put LSU in because they have the head-to-head to Georgia and the SEC championship?
Yes.
We've already seen it in the past, though, where Penn State had the same exact scenario. They beat Ohio State. They had the Big Ten championship. They had 2 losses, and the committee put Ohio State in anyway. The only difference is going to be Georgia's loss was in the championship game compared to in the middle of the season. I think Penn State beat them in October, right?
Urban Meyer went on that tirade toward the end of the year where he was pistol whipping community colleges by 80 points, too, to be like, hey, look, we're good. We're good. That was a fluke. Psych. Didn't matter. 80-point win, 80-point win, 80-point win. They're like, well, we have to be in now.
Well, that'd be another thing. Could you imagine if LSU beats Georgia and they decide to put Tennessee in instead of either of them? Because Tennessee beat LSU.
I don't think that they could do that because...
Why can't they? They can do whatever they want.
Because I think the pulling factor is going to be LSU conference champion. And you can take your Big Ten champion, whether it's Ohio State or Michigan, and I think that puts the other one out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that's where if there's a 1-loss champ from the SEC, or not the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12, I think the last 2 has to come from that poll. I don't care if Michigan's sitting there or Ohio State. Honestly, I think Ohio State has the best chance if they lose to get in, where they're going to say, well, Ohio State beat Notre Dame and they lost to Michigan. They're going to be in over a 1-loss TCU or a 1-loss USC. I think that's going to be an easier sell just because of how hyped the talent of Ohio State's offense is, but I honestly, I don't believe like that should happen. If you lose the conference and there's 3 conference champs that have the same or better record than you, they should be in. Now, where it gets interesting, like you said, is if they have those 4, like they're not going to drop the SEC out. So which conference is going to be left out then? Is it the ACC?
But I think the one thing that they need to look at is how far do you fall out? Like, I think they set the precedent that they left Alabama with a chance to get back in when they lost to Georgia earlier.
But I think they get jumped, though. Like, I don't think Clemson's going to lose. I said that earlier in the year, though.
Clemson or North Carolina, if you went out and you're the conference champion,
they should be in the playoff.
I think you can push your way close.
They should be in. There's no reason 2 SEC teams should get in over the conference champion when one of your contenders in your conference lost to an ACC school, right? They lost to Florida State. UNC didn't play Florida State.
I'm not arguing. I'm not contending that yet. But I see the way that they play these gymnastic games. Like Notre Dame had that really ugly loss to Marshall, but they're 18th.
And they lost to Stanford, Matt.
And the trees.
And Notre Dame is the only team that beat Clemson and North Carolina. So don't be surprised if they just become the ACC champs and they're in the playoff. Wouldn't that be funny?
Number 18, Notre Dame, is now the 4th team in the playoff.
Now they're going to be in the Orange Bowl. They're going to take the ACC's BCS Bowl or New Year's Six, whatever the hell they're calling them. Because that's part of their contract, too. They could do that, right? I think they have to be in the top 12, though, don't they? There's like some stipulation, and if they keep winning, Matt, they could be pretty damn close because they could beat USC. Notre Dame plays USC. So how insane would that drive you if the ACC missed the playoffs and then Notre Dame took their New Year's Six Bowl?
Well, this is what I want to see happen. I want to see Lincoln Riley just put like 90 on Notre Dame.
You think that's going to happen? USC's kind of been looking sloppy out there.
But they're weird in that, like, one moment they'll score a pile of points, and then the next they're like, we kind of stink.
Yeah, but Addison was hurt for a bit, and he was really bailing them out early in the year. If he doesn't come back, USC has to play UCLA in that sold-out half Rose Bowl, and then they have to play Notre Dame.
Which makes me wonder if Addison regrets leaving Pitt.
Wouldn't you?
Yes. Yeah. No. No. To be in Southern California.
Maybe he doesn't.
Have to deal with snow right now. Yeah. Sign me up right now.
Well, he could be the difference. Pitt could be on this list if he was still there. You never know. I just think that if USC beats UCLA and then they beat Notre Dame and then they beat the Pac-12 other champ, which would probably be Utah or Oregon, right? I don't know how their tiebreakers work. Or maybe Washington at this point. It depends on how the last couple weeks of the season go, I guess. I think they're going to be in. And if TCU wins out, then they're in. Or I think if TCU loses, I just don't see them losing. They're either going to win out or they're going to lose the Big 12. And then to your point, I think Clemson would take that spot. Because you're going to have a 12-1 non-Big 12 champ TCU, or you're going to have a 12-1 conference champ. That makes a difference. They play Baylor this week. Baylor hasn't been consistent. And then they play Iowa State. I really don't see them losing to either of those two teams, right? So that is the deciding factor. If they lose the conference championship game, that's an easy way for the committee to say, nope, you're out TCU, you're not conference champs. We're going to put in Clemson, USC, and someone else instead of you. And then I think the committee wants 4 conference champs because it makes them look better. They don't want to look like idiots. That's why the years that the SEC has gotten 2 schools in, there hasn't been a conference champ with the same record, right? Like last year, you had what conference champ should have got in instead of Georgia or Alabama, right? Then they both have 1 loss. Then you had the 1-loss Big Ten team. The next closest team was a 2-loss Ohio State, right? Unless I'm misremembering.
I think you're right.
So if they have the same amount of losses, that's where the conference championship goes ahead and they make that decision. of, hey, that's what we're going to do, and go from there. Yeah, Ohio State lost to Oregon last year and then lost to Michigan, so they had 2 losses. If they had only had 1, maybe then the other ones didn't get in, right? But looking at the list here, USC, Clemson, and UNC, North Carolina, all have 1 loss with Tennessee. That's where it gets kind of tricky. If any of them have 2 losses, do they put Tennessee or Ohio State or Michigan in as non-champ 1-loss teams? We don't know. So tune in, keep your eye on it, and we'll check back in. My big thing for the final bell is going to be like, what do you want to happen? Like, you're an ACC guy. Would you rather have Notre Dame take the ACC spot in New Year's 6? Because it keeps Clemson out, right?
I don't know. Like, I don't know that does it affect anything?
Because, well, my nightmare scenario is Michigan beats Ohio State in like a close game in the shoe, right? Michigan then plays TCU in the 2-3 game, and Ohio State backs into the playoffs and plays Georgia and beats them. And then beats Michigan in the national championship game, or hell, Michigan loses to TCU, so Ohio State wins the national championship even after losing to Michigan 2 games in a row. Like, that would be a nightmare scenario. So, like, if Michigan beats Ohio State, I want Ohio State to not make the playoffs. So, like, that's what the difference is for me, who I'm cheering for. Everyone's telling me, hey, you should cheer against USC this weekend. And I'm like, I don't know if Michigan's going to win yet. Maybe I want USC to lose, right? Because if Michigan loses to Ohio State and LSU, or if TCU loses and USC loses and Clemson loses to North Carolina, because you could have a scenario where North Carolina loses to NC State, right? Beats Clemson. You have a 2-loss ACC champ. Oregon beats USC in the championship game or someone. The 2-loss Pac-12 champ. And then you have TCU lose to Baylor and then lose the championship game. So you have a 2-loss Big 12 champ. Then the committee's like, who do we put in the playoffs, right? It's going to come down to Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and Tennessee or LSU. I think they put 2 of each in. And the other conferences complain, and then they say, well, we are expanding the playoffs in 3 years, so come back and you'll enjoy it when you're there. And that's why I think, I thought about this a little bit more. Maybe we'll do a video on it, but I was thinking, why don't they just go to an 18-team playoff and have all 10 conferences in and put in the bylaws? Because right now they have it locked in where they're like 6 conference champions get in the 12-team playoff. If you go to 18 and stop it there, you can have the first 4 weekend where you have the lowest ranked teams playing that first 4, which traditionally would be like the college basketball tournament, where the first 4 in are going to be a mix of the weaker conferences / the lowest seeds, like a Notre Dame might sneak in with 3 losses. But hey, you get to play Coastal Carolina, buddy, that first round before everyone else plays, and you could get eliminated anyway.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm like, if things don't get cleared up, because like I'm looking at it for a way, do I want the Big Ten to keep expanding? Maybe. But if they went to an 18-team playoff, I really wouldn't want the Big Ten to expand, right? I don't even know if I'd want USC and UCLA, because you're just making it tougher for Michigan to get in, right? At some point, if you keep getting bigger and bigger, they're going to have to play extra conference championship games. Maybe the conference championship game is 2 weeks now because they have so many teams. And then that's just an extra loss for you. Then guess what? You could lose to Ohio State and be eliminated. You could lose to the Big Ten semifinal game. You could lose in the Big Ten championship game and you're out. So I would rather have more set roles. And I honestly don't like the fact that like Pitt or West Virginia, because like growing up in Western PA, like I don't want those teams eliminated from contention at all, right? Being an NC State guy, I don't want NC State eliminated. If they make a run and win the ACC, hell, UNC, not a Tar Heel fan. If they make a run here and win the ACC with 1 loss, I would like to see them get in, not because I want them to, but because I think that they should have a chance. That's my final bell. I don't care. Like, a 2-loss LSU should not get in over a team with a better record and a conference championship themselves. Especially if your team lost to someone from their conference, right? I just don't think that that's fair. And why put Georgia and LSU both in? Like, I could see getting one in, but don't pass over like North Carolina if they're able to be a 1-loss champ and have a better or equal record to another team that's getting in. Just don't tell me that that's the only thing that they can do. Because otherwise, why are you playing the games? That's my final bell. You have anything for the final bell?
No, I don't. I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I know you don't care about the rankings because Florida State's not in the top 4. So,
well, no, I'm happy. I will say that it was nice to watch the absolute beatdown of Syracuse, like it was the days of yore when we were in the top 4, and it was like, oh great, we're playing Syracuse. Do I even want to watch this 50-0 beatdown? But it was like, I was talking to a fellow Seminole friend that for even during the years where they were competing for the playoff spots, the receiving core at Florida State has always kind of struggled, and the last legitimate big play receiver was probably back in like 99, 2000 when Peter Warwick was there. There hasn't been like that dynamic of a guy, and now it's like they really have their receiving core probably has some guys that could potentially be drafted.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir though, but I think some of it is the pro scheme, right? I don't think it's really the talent.
But I think some of it, there is a level of talent that I don't see physicality. I don't see separation. I didn't see going and making plays. And there are a couple times on Saturday where just throwing those standstills where they just turn and fire, and the receiver just stiff-armed the corner to the ground and then ran to the end zone. It was like, I haven't seen that from a Florida State receiver. I couldn't tell you how long. Or like to go last week, where the first play of the game against Miami, we run the post down the middle of the field and just physically outrun somebody to the end zone. I haven't seen a Florida State receiver do that. And those are the kinds of things that, not just from a program standpoint, but from a player development standpoint, those are the things that move the needle. Because if you can start to consistently do that and recruit that type of talent, now you're not just X and O in it. You can just say, well, we're going to run this, and it doesn't matter what you do, because we're better than you and we're going to run past you.
I just think I hear the same complaint against Michigan's guys, and I think it's like Harbaugh's scheme where they can't get off the line, but I'm like, but they're also being taught to pass block like every play or make it look like it, and it's working in the run game. And then they have guys like Peoples-Jones having success in the NFL. I think Nico Collins just caught a touchdown this past weekend. It's like Michigan has guys that are NFL talents. They're going to have Ronnie Bell get drafted. Harbaugh just said he's not coming back next year. He's already accepted a Senior Bowl invite, and he's had NFL scouts already talking to him or whatever. So, like, you have guys like that you have NFL guys. I just think some of the schemes, are you running a system where guys are just like running downfield like Tennessee? No. Now, does it work against a team that can out physical you like Georgia? Also, no. They didn't have anyone running open against Georgia. That game was a complete shutdown. That's another thing where the committee, are you going to put Tennessee in again? Because I don't see any scenario where if TCU is undefeated and obviously Michigan or Ohio State's undefeated, there's no scenario where you can jump Tennessee to number 3 without just coming out and saying like, well, we wanted to avoid the rematch. Because last year they kind of hinted at that. That's why Georgia and Alabama kind of jumped each other or whatever. But they had the results to kind of finagle it. This year they don't. Like TCU could say, like, we went undefeated. We've been ahead of Tennessee the entire time. There's no reason Tennessee should have jumped us. And they would have the right cause. They don't want to play Georgia. What the hell? Like, TCU doesn't want their reward for an undefeated season to be playing the overall number 1 team. Right? And Tennessee, that's why it's going to pain me if Michigan does beat Ohio State, if Ohio State backs into the playoffs because of it. And on the flip side, I'd kind of want Michigan to back in too, instead of Tennessee. Michigan hasn't been in any close games all year. Unless Ohio State shuts them down like Georgia shuts down Tennessee, then I could see a case. But then Tennessee go to overtime with Pitt. That's a 6-win team right now. What if Pitt ends up 6-6 or something? That's the top team in the SEC that needs to be in the playoffs? Nah, dog. So thanks for listening. Go to southboundsports.com to get all our stuff. And we will see you next week.